In this video, I'll be covering Play-Day number 2 of the North American Pro League, featuring SSG versus Evil Geniuses on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is one of those maps where it's beneficial to bring all 3 hard breachers and also Thatcher. Evil Geniuses bans Maverick because if you don't ban Maverick, then it's very easy to Mav trick the exterior walls on Jacuzzi and CCTV. So almost always going to see a Mav ban or a hard breach ban. Also likely to see a Thatcher ban. Capitao is very strong. Capitao is most commonly used to get a player out of blue. Normally it's a Jaeger. And then also on a basement defense. And then also to get a player off of Catwalk. Valkyrie for the first defensive ban. Valk is a operator that you can normally get away with picking because there's no room, or rather her intel normally remains throughout the entire round because there's normally not an IQ since you need to bring all 3 hard breachers plus Thatcher, a Zofia, and then another soft breacher. So it's pretty nice having Valk banned. Of course, this leaves Echo still on the table. And then Mute's banned from EG. I believe it's them respecting the basement defense that Reaper EN has covered in the past from Spacestation Gaming, and then also SSG might lean heavily on Mute in their setups. From SSG, they're going to lean on this lineup throughout the entirety of the game. That is the 2 hard breachers in Haban and Thermite, and then Thatcher. Those are the required operators. Then most often teams bring Zofia because of her concussion grenade over Ash. But some teams will lean into Ash instead, really up to the team. And then it's a flavor of what soft breaching operator you want to bring. You almost always want to have a lethal secondary piece of utility in nades. So that typically leaves teams for either the Sledge or the Buck, and SSG chooses Buck. On EG side, we have a 6 from the Smoke onto the Mira. Mira, normally banned on Clubhouse, but not in this case. So EG is going to take a very strong operator in Smoke and go to even stronger operator in Mira. And then we have the hard breach denial and Bandit. If Bandit's tricking, this is very strong. If Bandit isn't tricking, this is quite weak because the Thatcher is the counter to Bandit. The Mozzie is just to deny droning. Castle is... there's probably going to be one of those SSG strats that we're going to see here. And then the Jaeger is a default pick. So very quickly, shout out to Pure Chaos, who's been trying to maintain R6 maps since whoever initially started it has no longer done so. Although the blueprints that we have of Clubhouse are still the ones before the rework. I think the biggest change is that this would obviously enclose construction, that line I just drew. And there would also be a bathroom area here that isn't there, as well as maybe there's one little nuanced thing about the basement, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So still very much the same layout, and we're going to use this to talk about the game, despite it not being actually accurate anymore. On the second floor, we have a reinforcement on the jacuzzi wall and a reinforcement in the bathroom wall. This is accompanied with a mirror window looking from bathroom out onto the jacuzzi. So I don't actually understand fully why they would reinforce this particular wall. I don't know if there's something... maybe they just want to restrict the mobility of a player running in through a balcony and then into gym. That's possible, but that's reinforced. And then a reinforcement on the construction exterior wall. You don't see it here because, again, this is an older version of Clubhouse, but that does exist. 2 reinforcements on the CCTV room wall to conclude the reinforcements above. The hatch in gym is opened up, and I believe there's a rotation. There's probably other rotations too in order to give the roamers above more mobility through, well, really the top section of the map and enable this big roam. On the first floor, we're going to see Strip Club be reinforced, and then an armor panel on the bar door. A armor panel on the bathroom door, again, this would be bathroom here, and also one on the lobby into bar door. And the idea here is just to give a player in bar as much security as possible with these armor panels, as well as if a player or an attacker were holding out in strip the hatch drop in gym, well, this wall would need to be thermited in order, or breached, in order for a attacker to capitalize on said angle. But ultimately, a defender would have to tear down this castle barricade in order to drop the opened moto hatch. Reinforced bar hatch and the stock hatch is remained intact. One of the glaring, and let's draw this castle barricade or armor panel once again. One of the glaring weaknesses, and something that SSG knows very well of the setup, is the soft wall in from central hallway into bar, and a line of sight from outside can actually be established in order to contest the player who might, or hold the player who might be playing in bar, which indeed there is going to be one during the setup. The reason why stock or blue hatch would be left unreinforced is to drop and retake blue if needed. On the basement level, 2 reinforcements on the church wall with a mirror window on the middle wall, and that gives you a way to contest the main stairs. And I think that is it for the reinforcements. The pest, I didn't really get a great look of where those are used. The bandit charges, I'm sure, are used on the CCTV wall, and I think that's really it. I think that's all that. I think Gotcha only puts down 2. Into the round we go. The Buck, or at least all of SSG, realizes that there's a player in bar. So what's Buck going to do? He's going to create that rotation that I mentioned. And it looks like Faults on the Zoe is splitting from pool table as well. So there's nearly no way, or actually strip, so there's really no way that this player wins his gunfight. I want to point out that Rampy immediately turns to the construction hatch drop. He knows from his own setup that this is what a player, or how a player would respond to a death in pool. So really good understanding of their own strategy, and I believe that's exactly what happens. In the kill feed, we see that Rampy dies from Modiga, most likely dropping the construction hatch, and then NVK gets the refrag onto Rampy. Well, where's Rampy? Rampy's in stock right now, so he more likely than not was holding an angle from stock onto, or built an angle from stock onto Buck, who would have been still in bar in order to get the kill on the hatch drop that would actually be about here. I didn't realize that hatch drop was not visible on this map. We're at a 4-3. Bandit is in logistics. As I mentioned, there's most likely a rotation into construction. A bit of a misdrone there from Zofia, or not really a misdrone, but just impatience from the thermite. I don't think he realized where Mira would be playing, and that's what leads to that frag there. Thinking Nade gets the bandit rotating back from logistics, most likely down main stairs, maybe down moto drop, and then Necrox is going off, really trying to hold down sight here. We have Bosco down. The defenders just need to wait to hear a plant. They don't really need a push. And Mira's position in the hallway isn't really the strongest, considering the defenders currently have a cam in the hallway, the default cam actually. That cam so often remains up, and it hurts the attackers so much. Bosco's holding the basement hallway here. Mira has 2 rotations, more likely than not. There's no rotate on blue. So how can Mira retake sight? She can either push through, let's draw this a different color. She can either push through the hallway here, or loop around through Memorial and go into the same line of sight. Mira, if she has her C4, should have created rotate into blue, at least to give herself another option to contest this defuse. Same lineup from the attackers. I won't even mention it moving forward. On the defense, we have Mira, Bandit, Goyo off of the Echo. This obviously represents 3 pieces of utility that need to be removed with lethal utility in So Buck has 2, Zoe has 2, and that's most likely why they're also, EG, is also bringing the alibi. I think it's for the deployable shield. I don't actually know if I wrote down where that deployable shield is used. On gym and bedroom, we have your default reinforcements on jacuzzi, a reinforcement on bathroom accompanied with the mirror window, reinforcements on CCTV. All 3 walls on cache into red will be reinforced. A single reinforcement on the cache into CCTV wall accompanied with a black window. So basically this player is going to attempt to contest the CCTV area while having the security of red stairs being reinforced. Reinforcement on construction. The reason why you need reinforced construction here is because if this player in cache can rotate out into construction and then back into site without losing their life, then they should, especially if they lose the black window or if they lose the reinforcements on red. There's a line of sight that the defenders are opening up here on this wall and bedroom into construction. This gives the defenders a line of sight that should be able to contest the gym window. In previous videos, I think I've mentioned that this wall is really good to hard breach, but I actually think it's even stronger for defenders to open up so that they have this line of sight in order to deny the vault into gym from the window. Foot level soft destruction all across gym. That's in order to contest the plant that typically goes into gym. There's a rotation from logistics into construction. That's just, again, to give players mobility throughout the site, in and out of the adjacent rooms into the site. And then lastly, there's our Vulcan shield. So there's going to be one underneath the default camera, and that stops a push up, say red, but also through the breach if the attackers were to do that. There's one in construction in order to contest the window that would exist here on construction. And then lastly, a Vulcan shield in cache. And I believe that's for the retreat of the defender because of how passive it is on the doorway of cache and CCTV. Big respect from SSG for this run out of strip. So Buck is entering through garage. And in theory, SSG are walking right into the counter-strat of EG. And that is the black window that exists on cache. We have Thermite who just opened pressure into CCTV from the outside. Jaeger's here in oil pit, but he's not going to be able to do a whole lot. Buck knows that he's in oil pit, so he's not letting Jaeger get any angles onto him. So we do see the rotation from Jaeger. And Zafia is chasing down the Jaeger. So blue's obviously really strong to hold because that is one of the ways to rotate and support on red. We have Habana here making short work of that black window. And Buck is holding the rotation that the defender would need to make in order to get out of the sticky situation in cache. And actually we see the bandit is now dead. So the attackers now have control of cache. They're split pushing into logistics. We just saw another defender try to rotate, maybe even vault into construction. But what happened is Vaults detonated the Goyo shield, the Vulcan shield, and that inevitably killed the defender. Now that they have control of cache, they now also have established control of construction and are pushing into logistics. Opening up that logistics hatch allowed these attackers to wide into logistics and get this kill on the Mira. Mira even trying to contest logistics hatch is is very aggressive, but she needed to because they're at a man disadvantage. And then I don't even know what happens at the end here. Fultz gets a kill on someone playing behind bomb, and this nade is ridiculous, but it kills the Jaeger. Same strat from EG based on their operator lineup and the fact that they're going to Church and Arsenal. I'm not even going to bother with the reinforcements because it's probably the same as the first round. Actually, I know that there's some differences on the Jacuzzi wall, but it doesn't matter because of how the round plays out. Let's just enjoy this blue rush from SSG. So SSG, the pioneers of this strategy, what do they know? They know that blue is one of the weaker areas of this hold. That C4 throw from the Mira Necrox could have stopped everything. But SSG know that if they push in deep into Arsenal, that they have the chance to get a 2v1 on site, which is what they're taking. Canadian gets the kill on Necrox, and Necrox gets nothing for it. All SSG have to do now is hold the hallway, because that's where the rotations are going to come from, and also blue, because that's another flanking possibility. And not even blue, but blue door. And everything collapses. I mean, what is Mozzie supposed to do here? Maybe this would have played differently if the player in blue had dropped sooner and been able to get the kill on the player holding the hallway. But that didn't happen, so SSG win. With Smoke, Goyo, and Maestro, also Jaeger, that is a ton of utility drain. SSG do have, actually they don't have enough to remove all the utility that these 4 operators bring. I mean, you have potentially the 6 flashbangs between Habana and Thermite in order to get rid of the ADSs. A Thatcher could do that too, but you normally need that for the Bandit charge. Then you have the 2 Evil Eyes, the 3 shields, and the 1 deployable shield that Smoke most likely will bring, unless it's barbed wire. Whereas Buck has 2 grenades, Zoe has 2 impacts, and those numbers already can't remove the utility that Smoke and Goyo bring. So Thatcher will have to use his 3 EMPs in order to remove the Bandit charges and also the Evil Eyes. More likely than not, there's going to be 1 piece of utility that remains up from the defenders. A really strange reinforcement on the on the Jacuzzi wall. I don't actually think a defender plays in this area at all, and the area that I'm talking about is like all of this. So just kind of throwing reinforcements where they think it would be smart, something. I don't really know. Especially when what EG will do is they'll sacrifice the reinforcements that they would have on the north walls of construction. So what I'm circling right now, actually let's just create a rotation because that's what this is going to be for the attackers. This is a rotation into garage from the outside. They don't reinforce those 2 walls, making it so difficult for a player to play on Catwalk because utility can be thrown over from underneath onto that player's position. Big mistake from EG in terms of the reinforcement allocation here, especially if you're going to dedicate at the start a reinforcement to the garage wall at all. There's no reason not to reinforce all 4 garage walls if you're going to reinforce 2 of them. 2 reinforcements on your CCTV wall. Bandit will attempt to trick these walls. We have a reinforcement in construction, reinforcement on garage catwalk into CCTV, reinforcement on red, and a reinforcement on cache. Barbed wire on the window of CCTV, and then also on the bottom of red stairs. There's a rotation between the catwalk and CCTV. Talk about this angle, but I love it. I love it so much. If you play on catwalk and you hold this line of sight that I'm drawing right now, you can hold the push from cache or from construction into cache, and then also the vault into CCTV from the window. Catwalk is such a strong position to play as a defender because of how much you can deny from the attackers. There is more complexity to the spot though, because inevitably what happens is this wall gets breached open, and the line of sight that an attacker gets from this breach allows them to contest your position in 90. There's also, and we'll see this happen in the game, there's also a line of sight that a player from the window can get on a player if they move too close to 90. What's more is it's very common for attackers to hard breach a line of sight on this south garage wall that allows them to hold a line of sight onto the window rotate from Catwalk into CCTV. Where do you play? Well, you normally play, and we number this 1, 2, and 90, or 3, depending on your team. You normally play behind 2 and 1. Well, that's where the attackers know to throw lethal utility at. And so, because of all these lines of sight, the Catwalk position is normally a position that is best played prone, never peeking, and expecting your teammates to hold a line of sight in cash room that can contest the Catwalk stairs as attackers try to push up Catwalk. If you die on Catwalk, and I'm sure there's 3 ADSs to remove all the utility that's going to be thrown at a player on Catwalk, then you better die from lethal utility and not from a player peeking you from the garage door, because it really is a loss from the defensive side. Once the attackers get control of Catwalk, what can they do? Well, the answer is everything. They have control of CCTV, and now they also have control of Catwalk, which holds that same angle that I'm so fond of into cache. And you also can even hold the top of red. How would a defender ever retake the default plant behind the server bomb or the CCTV bomb? The answer is they cannot, unless they flank up garage. So very important for the player on Catwalk to know how to play the position properly. And basically what it is you don't peek. You expect your teammates to work with you in order to keep you alive. Some Goyo shields featured in this defensive strategy. One is on the rotation between Catwalk and CCTV, and that lets the player on Catwalk contest the outside breach. The thing is, they're not. It's just not safe for a player to even do that. Actually, I think this is I believe that's actually a standard shield, and it's not a Goyo shield. If it was a Vulcan shield, then you could potentially remove the possibility of the player on Catwalk even being able to hold that angle that I'm, again, so fond of. There is definitely a Goyo shield in CCTV that lets a player from cache peek the breach. And then there's another Goyo shield, Vulcan shield, in cache that basically lets the defenders contest all of construction and deny a push from that area as well. Interestingly enough, I believe there is a rotate construction in cache. It might not be a full rotate, but it's at least enough that the attackers are probably saying thank you to the defenders because they don't have to bring an extra hard breach to create that pressure. This isn't relevant to the match, but it's something that I'm really a big fan of. If you are a soft breacher, you should absolutely go into logistics, breach this wall here so that you have a line of sight into cache, because it cuts off all of the cache. And it goes even deeper than that. We can play this angle on the screen right now, and we can see that this goes all the way into the corner here. So definitely, as a soft breacher, open that up. We actually see where the last Goyo shield is, and it's underneath the default cam on top of red. Thank you, gotcha. And then there's that rotation that I mentioned in construction. This is very abnormal. You would normally not see a team do that. It's quite aggressive for the defenders to be giving the attackers that kind of pressure. And actually, this is what a great view. So we have this rotation here. We have the Vulcan shield in construction, the Vulcan shield in the Vulcan shield in cache, Vulcan shield in CCTV, and then a normal deployable shield that allows the player on Catwalk to peek the breach, or really maybe just move around away from the angles that the players on the breach would be able to get. So a lot of this round will lie on the shoulders of Young being able to bandit trick. How does SG attack the problem that they're faced? Well, what they're going to do is they're going to have the Thatcher Thatcher the wall. As soon as the orb hits the ground, they're placing the thermite charge. Thermite takes a bit of damage, which is what we see here with Canadian's bar. But it almost guarantees the breach of the wall from that alone, just based on the timing of things. In order to ensure that that happens, they have Buck go on the window of CCTV and nade the player that would be tricking that CCTV wall. Doesn't have a kill, because I think it gets caught by an ADS. That would be my guess. But it's enough to get the CCTV wall opened, and that's really what SSG wanted here. So I think that impact launcher should have removed the evil eye, but it still remains up. Here's that very aggressive Vulcan shield from EG, able to contest the breach. And I mentioned this earlier, but just one frame, well, we can still see it here. But this is a breach that Habana created in order to get that line of sight onto the window of Catwalk and stop players from rotating. Buck only has one grenade here. It's going to be really important for him to get the player off of Catwalk with that soul grenade. But he's being contested from a player who's playing by the window. Actually, it's just the 90 player. So Fultz on the Zoe is holding this rotate from the breach. He knows that his teammates are pushing below, and that this player here is going to be moving in order to avoid the nade underneath. All he has to do is wait, keep his eyes open, and get ready to shoot. We see there who gets the kill on the Jaeger. It is indeed Fultz on the Zofia. Good job of coordinating with the team there in order to net that kill, especially considering that was the last grenade they had in order to get the player off of Catwalk. So now the attackers, what they should do is they should take control of Catwalk and get ready for this plant. The biggest challenge while taking Catwalk is the position that Maestro has in cash on top of the table, and that's exactly what happens. So Maestro is holding this angle that looks onto Catwalk stairs, and that's a kill onto Canadian. There's not really a clean way to get the player off of that table unless you split from construction, which SSG absolutely could have done. This is just a nuts shot from Fultz here. Great pre-fire, great call out. But because of the pressure that EG created from cash into construction, really, if SSG had one player solo push construction, then he probably gets a two-piece with the smoke just kind of roaming around and the Maestro standing on a table that would have looked so stupid in the POV of the attacking player. I have to appreciate that EG are trying new strats. I mean, certainly new to me, but they're not working. They're not working at all. And I almost kind of feel like EG weren't expecting to go to Clubhouse. I would really like to see EG play a more default setup, maybe something that they're more comfortable with instead of these somewhat unique setups. I would say at this point, EG are losing because their players are being 5v1'd by SSG. And there's really no way to support a player, say on Catwalk, other than getting aggressive as the entire rest of the team. We just didn't see that, other than maybe the player on the deployable shield, the Maestro on the deployable shield, holding the breach. In terms of reinforcements, a reinforcement on the Arsenal wall. This is also with a black window. What this does is gives the defenders plenty of control of blue. And they've also reinforced the church into blue wall. Again, just to strengthen the position, or not the position, but the placement of this black window. Memorial hatch will be reinforced. Kitchen hatch will be reinforced. No more games there. And blue hatch will also be reinforced, though I don't really think you need it considering you have this black window there. Church will be double reinforced with a black window. We talked about how this gives you an ability to contest. Actually, it's not on that side, but this side rather. But that gives you an ability, or the ability, to contest the hallway. And then what I like to call the Ash Rush wall will be reinforced. That's the westernmost wall in Arsenal. It's very common for a player to breach into this wall. The last two reinforcements should be in tunnel. That's above our view, so I won't bother drawing it. This is your typical default turtle styled defense on a basement defense, and as I mentioned, I think this will work better, or at least when I was watching the VOD, I thought this would work a lot better for EG. One of the classic matchups in this kind of setup is the confrontation of the Zofia versus the Jaeger in blue, but because of the black window, I don't think we actually see that. So SSG are droning through strip in order to entry on the first floor. It looks like they already know that the entirety of the second floor is clear. They're getting to work. What Rampy just did there, don't know if it's super obvious. Rampy just shot the default cam, and people should really do that. I've talked about this in other Clubhouse matches, but I want to bring it back to the light because it's such a easy thing to do, but removes the default cam that normally stays up. So anyway, right above those main stairs, soft breach that and remove that default cam. It's also a great way to maintain or to push some pressure onto a player who might try to flank up blue. And actually, look at that. So there's a black window in blue that a player is manning, but guess who's also there? It's the Jaeger. It somewhat feels like EG have never played with Mira still left on the board, but because they recognize that Mira is such a strong operator, they brought her anyway and then tried to build strats around the fact, or tried to revise the strats they came in with the Mira in play. I just don't think that a player needs to be in blue if there's a black window in blue. So cool trick that Canadian's doing here. He initially places the exothermic in order to bait out an electro claw. He doesn't hear one, so he just goes for the breach. I'm surprised that Habana didn't do that, since Habana is better for opening up hatches. He might be worried about the timing, since a Cade electro claw can actually disable a Habana breach, but a thermic charge is faster than a K electro claw being actively deployed. Rampy was just like great timing here, because so Habana goes for the breach in kitchen hatch. Rampy immediately opens up underneath the kitchen hatch in order to support the denial of any kind of impact tricking of this kitchen hatch. And so Rampy doesn't get a kill here, but he does enough to dissuade the player from throwing that impact trick. Fultz is pushing down blue. We have the attackers ready to set up a plant here into Arsenal. They're circumventing the black windows by simply not pushing into them. Well, actually, Zofia's pushing into blue, and there is a black window there. But plant tap going into Arsenal, there isn't a black window that looks at this Arsenal plant, and that's why they're going for this. Fultz on Zofia is hoping to catch a player, just not watching blue, but that doesn't happen. And then Thinking Nade cuts off that main hallway rotate once again in order to get this plant down. What's really shocking about this, though, is two things. The first thing is there is still that black window on the church wall, which should have called out the fact that Thinking Nade is in this position. There's no way for Thinking Nade to get here without crossing the site that black window provides. The other thing is, even if that player was on cams or something, there's a cam looking right at Thinking Nade, and there's really nothing that matters other than you know that a player just dropped into Arsenal, tried to attempt a plant most likely. Wouldn't you want to be checking whether or not they're in Arsenal reattempting the plant? And wouldn't this Evil Eye provide you with the intel that there's a player at the end of main hallway? It's possible too that EG, all three of these players that are about to peak Thinking Nade, all knew that he was here at this point, and simply lost the gunfight because the angle that Thinking Nade's holding is just much stronger. So anyway, Thinking Nade nearly gets the 3K there. Necrox will go ahead and finish the down player. There's no way that Necrox is going to win because I'm pretty sure the attackers still have vertical control. He needs to retake vertically. But there really isn't, I mean, he just doesn't have enough power or time in order to do that. Back to gym and bedroom with the same setup from EG. In terms of operators, we'll also set up the exact same entry from SSG. They're going to take control of garage first. They're going to breach into CCTV. Nice Claymore kill there from Fultz. I'm not really sure where they get it. That is the wrong time to get aggressive though. Like how does Rampy just duck and weave and do that? And then how does the bandit who has a black window not realize that that's what's going to happen? I don't know. If Rampy entries, so Rampy ducks out of this position, but if Rampy continues to push into cash, crouched, there's not going to be a way for the defender, who should be in logistics, to see him. Actually, turning his back here is kind of dangerous. There isn't a rotate in logistics this time. Interesting. So complete control of construction, logistics from the attackers. Maybe not complete control, but with this hatch open, there should be no way that the defenders are able to play in logistics. This Mira is oblivious to the fact that, well, now that she's pinged, she's no longer. That was a mistake from Rampy. There's no reason to ping there. And that was one hell of a shot from Young. The slow cooked grenade on the spot that Mira was. So Mira rotates off of her position and then into that small room. Fult's able to get the kill. Again, no one can play logistics as soon as that logistics hatch is opened. And you have construction control. I mean, the whole thing is just going to fall apart. Like there, so a way that EG could have helped the bandit, who really is just kind of... So Bandit is solo in cash with a mirror window in order to support him and the ability to trick his own wall that should in theory be able to allow him to play this position. Well, the attackers breach the CCTV wall, but a way that the defenders could support Bandit so that he's not so solo is if they do have that rotate here, or this line of sight between cash and construction opened, that gives the defenders a way to support him through this doorway, I believe, of CCTV. Another thing too that I'm sure everyone is familiar with is the rotation that you get from the window of construction into CCTV. And I think that would have really helped Bandit. It's not a great choice to rotate up red, because red is triple reinforced and you're not going to get any support from Bandit there. But if you jump through this window, it's a very aggressive play. It's a different kind of rotation, somewhat unexpected. So I think there was a play there for the defenders to make. It doesn't happen, and that is why we have SSG up 6-0 on attack. Cool. So once again, I'm going to refer you to Reaper Yen's video on... I don't know if it's Reaper Yen or Reaper, but Reaper's video on the SSG 100% win rate on a basement defense here on Church and Arsenal. One of the key operators in that lineup is Mute, and instead of Mute, they're bringing the Cade. The reason why they're bringing Cade is because they value the wall denial on Jacuzzi and CCTV. So if you want to reconstruct this setup and you can't play Mute for some reason, then Cade or banditting those two walls is my suggestion. The other reason why they're choosing Cade over Bandit is because they need a shotgun in order to create rotates. And so that's why they're bringing the Cade here. They actually let a 3 armor player roam above as Mute would have, which I thought was quite funny. So you really understand, I mean, this ban of Mute really teaches you a lot about the strategy and the way that SSG are valuing the utility that operators bring. Again, I'm not going to do the setup because Reaper already does a great job. we have our default 3 hard breachers, and then a sledge instead of a buck and a Zoe because, you know, utility. This Thatcher pick makes removing those Cade Electro Claws so easy, and I actually just don't think that SSG need to bring Mute or Cade or Bandit when Mavericks banned and only Mavericks banned. If they banned Thatcher, I think that the conversation changes and Cade actually becomes extremely strong, but that's not how the bans went. One little difference that I notice in the setup that SSG brings here is they have a rotation in blue, and so that lets a player who drops the blue hatch rotate cleanly into Arsenal for the retake. This is a heavy offsite roam. I also don't think that SSG ever reinforced strip. EG are hard breaching the wall into CCTV. They need to create this pressure so that they can push the roamers out and down into the basement. Of course, it's kind of the strategy from SSG, which is just to waste time playing on the second floor when the site is in fact on the basement. And here we go. We have the Cade roaming above the TSG. The Legion, I don't know if Reaper mentions this, I'm sure he does, but the Legion is there because in sight, and the only player in sight, because he's able to give intel to himself where the attackers are pushing if they rush sight. Very important operator to have in order to execute this strategy properly. A unique exothermic on the bar door there. But actually it's worth it because EG know that SSG have most of the hatches open that they would otherwise try to open. And getting the pressure into bar here is more important in order, again, to push the roamers downstairs. So at this point, the defenders feel as though they've done their job. I think everyone's returned back to site. There's no one who straggled. And the attackers know this, so they're hitting site as hard as they possibly can. That's just a cheeky C4 throw from Church onto the player who would be most likely in main stairs. So at this point, Thermite hasn't breached into Church. It actually can't breach into Church. I'm pretty sure none of the hatches that weren't already opened by the defenders are opened. There's really no pressure that exists from the attackers, or that was created by the attackers, at least on site. There are how many entries for the attackers then? There's the entry that was created in blue by the defenders. There's this doorway memorial. There's the hallway, and tunnels probably not even opened up. But there's basically only 3 ways, well 4 ways, because also just the blue door. There's really only 4 ways for the attackers to push into site. The defenders know this. Cade dies holding an angle onto memorial door here, and then is immediately refragged by the Mozzie, who's prone still in Church. The attackers still win out in the trade war because Thatcher is able to push down the hallway. I don't know what Castle was watching in order for that to happen. There was a player who pushed blue from the attacking side. That's a little curious too. And Faults here with 2 seconds left just doesn't have to do anything. If he hides and AFKs, he most likely wins that. It was a great little game of trading players 1 for 1. And in the end, it was just the Castle, I think Faults, getting a little antsy in his 1v1 position. He probably thought Plant was going down, didn't have any intel because there isn't any from SSG, and that's why the round was lost. Really should have been an SSG win though. This time we're on to Gym and Bedroom. We have Thinking Nade on the Cade in order to trick the Jacuzzi wall potentially, which with Cade you're not going to be able to do really, given there's a Thatcher. Mira in order to hold down Jacuzzi wall since that will be breached. Maestro for intel, plant denial, and then Vigil in particular, because Jaeger's the default pick, but Jaeger in particular, or Vigil in particular, is going to be able to impact trick inside of cash, which is the position that he'll play in this defensive strategy. Let's look at the setup. So your reinforcements on jacuzzi wall, a reinforcement on bathroom with a mirror window. That's all pretty default. We have footholes all across bedroom and gym, and the same line of sight. It's not a rotate, but a line of sight that you get from construction in order to hold the vault into a gym window. Or at least, like I said, that's what I think that's for. Rotation, logistics into construction. And then they reinforce CCTV wall. They put one reinforcement and then a black window on that reinforcement. 2 reinforcements on cash and then a rotation red into cash. Let's talk about this black window on CCTV that looks into garage. Why are SSG doing this? It's because it's how they take. I think that's so cool. It really makes you understand how a team thinks. SSG value the push into garage so much that in their own strategies, they're countering what they would do. I don't think it's actually that common for a attacking team to push through garage. I think a lot of times teams push up red stairs and then through the CCTV breach in order to establish CCTV and cash room control. But SSG do something a little different, and they're countering what they would do with that black window. So very quick and early, EG breaching the CCTV wall. And we see here that the way that EG are pushing is just a straight CCTV breach into construction. That's pretty cool. So we have 2 players from SSG holding construction, or not construction, CCTV, and that's through that rotate that was created on top of red. Faults dips out in order to reinforce. We just saw Rampy on the Vigil is about to impact the top of cash wall in order to deny them from breaching it. Well, Rampy's now full flashed, which is enough for the attackers here to breach the cash wall. Rampy's getting super aggro because the frag onto faults. He's able to get the kill, or the refrag really, but then he's traded out. So the attackers have control of cash and effectively construction as well. There is that rotate and logi, so the attackers, if they haven't already, should open up the logistics hatch in order to create that pressure. Because I think we actually see a player either on the top of red, or not red, on the top of the main stairs, or they're in logistics. Not sure where that frag came from, not really sure. Okay, so the player was on top of the main stairs. And it looks like a player pushed in from construction or maybe dropped the hatch, and that's how they died. Bosco is Zode, so they're going to push him. Only took 2 players to make a great play there. Unfortunate that the reload doesn't come there for Thinking Aid quickly enough. Doesn't really matter because Diffuser is down, however, and no matter what, Thinking Aid's going to have to vault out of this window in order for him to win this round. But actually, even smarter than me, he vaults out of the construction window. Still the same line of sight for Modiga on the Zoe, but gives him somewhat a better chance of getting this kill since it's just a longer line of sight and a little less expected since it's not directly from sight. Cash and CCTV defense. This is a pretty default hold. There's 2 hard breach denial operators in Cade and Bandit, and then we have a Pulse 2 who will most likely be roaming underneath. Again, default hold, or really default reinforcements. You have 4 reinforcements in the bottom garage, thank you, SSG, in order to support the player on Catwalk. As I mentioned earlier, if the player on Catwalk remains prone and relies on his teammates in order to support him, then getting the player out of Catwalk is very difficult because the only way you can do it is through lethal utility. That's why Capita was banned so often on Clubhouse, since he circumvents ADSs. So the way that EG are going to handle the bandit tricking CCTV wall is they're going to Thatcher, thermite and then concussion him through the drone hole here, which is enough to get him off of, or not off, but prevent him from being able to effectively bandit trick. Sledge is going to sledge into tunnel here, push through dirt, most likely up blue, but really what's his objective is to catch a player on roam underneath. As I mentioned in the previous video, this is something that's becoming more and more meta for Siege Pro League teams. At least that's what I think is something that is becoming more meta. It's possible that was always meta, but I see more teams having it as a focus of their attacks. EG doing the same thing that SSG did, and there's that rotate cutoff from the sledge. He should really just rotate out. Like, he got the entry pick, which is great, and really what EG wants. His nades in soft breach, or really the nades, are so important to get this player out of Catwalk, and right now EG are trying to do that. So he actually has rotated, I think, through oil pit in order to get here underneath garage. They're able to take care of the player who was on Catwalk pretty quickly. I want to mention too that Cade played that perfectly, remaining prone. We see that table angle once again, able to square this up to a 1v1, and it comes down to Bandit versus the Sledge. Both full HP. Bandit, what he should do is wait to hit a plant. He's even getting pings, so they probably have some Evil Eye. Well, actually, I think it just got sledged, which is unfortunate. And most likely why I think they decided to press, unless you heard the sound of the diffuser. Well, no, he's still getting pings. So he's still getting pings. Bandit didn't have to get this aggressive then, because that means that he had intel on where the player's position was. He also shouldn't have wide peeked the player. If he just pre-fires the angle that Sledge obviously has to push him from, which is really this like nook here, and instead of widening his entire body out of cover, then he wins that round, and this doesn't become a trade, which in Siege is in favor of the defensive side that has control of bomb. So if it was the attackers who had planted, the attackers would have won. Since the defenders prevented the attackers from planting, the defenders win. Anyway, SSG win in dominant fashion. I don't even know if it's fair to say that. I think EG look terrible on Clubhouse. Let's look at the numbers here. Canadian was the only one who had a bad game. Everyone did really, really well. I think something that I'm beginning to notice, and I don't have anything to really back it up with, is the number of trades that SSG get seems a bit low. I haven't ever tracked trades before, but I would imagine that only having 6 in a game is low. Another thing that I want to point to is Thinking Aid this week, again, has a very high deaths with advantage percentage. And that makes me concerned that him as a player is just over-peaking way too much. Overall, a really good game. Rampy finally got a nade kill, but that's one nade kill across, I think it's just one nade kill across 2 games when he only plays operators with nades. So what is that? That's 6 rounds. I mean, that's 12 rounds, right? So that's a bit concerning from Rampy as well. All in all, great game, and take care. So same terrible strat from EG.